They say love is blind, that when you're in the arms of someone you trust, you feel safe, protected, cherished. But what if the very person who holds your heart, the one you believe will stand by you forever, is secretly weaving a web of deception so tangled it's impossible to escape? For one woman, her love story turned into a nightmare that no one could have predicted. Lena had met Ben, and everything seemed perfect. Charming, ambitious, and attentive. He seemed like the ideal man. They quickly became inseparable, their engagement a celebration of a love that appeared unshakable. But beneath Ben's polished exterior, there was something Lena didn't know. Something so deeply hidden that it would eventually destroy everything she believed in. When the day came that Lena uncovered the truth, it wasn't just the end of her engagement. It was the beginning of something far more unsettling. The secrets Ben had kept buried for so long would soon come to light, and the shocking revelation would turn their world upside down. This is not a story of mere betrayal, nor is it simply about a relationship gone wrong. It's a tale of deception, hidden lives, and the shocking consequences of a secret so dark it would forever change Lena's life. This is the story of how one man's hidden past collided with the future he had promised, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. Lena and Ben were, on the surface, the ideal couple. They met at work, became close friends, and before long, their relationship blossomed into something much deeper. Ben was everything Lena had dreamed of: handsome, supportive, and always there when she needed him. Their friends and family admired the relationship, believing they were both perfectly matched. Ben's charm and success seemed to promise a future full of happiness. But behind his carefully crafted image, there was more to him than anyone knew. He had lived a life that Lena was completely unaware of, a life that would eventually come to light and change everything. This video will uncover the truth behind the events that led to Lena's tragic discovery. We will look at the gradual unraveling of their relationship, the hidden secrets that Ben kept from Lena, and the devastating consequences of those secrets. This is a serious exploration into the complexity of relationships and the devastating impact of a double life. In this case, the betrayal is not just about infidelity or broken trust. It's about a secret so profound, it altered the course of both their lives. We'll take a closer look at the psychology of both individuals involved, how one's hidden past can slowly unravel the present, and how Lena's discovery shattered everything she thought she knew about the man she was about to marry. This video is not about sensationalizing the events, but about understanding the deeper implications of the choices people make. How do we truly know the people we trust? What does it mean when someone hides their past from those closest to them? This documentary will examine the truth, piece by piece, revealing the full extent of what happened and the investigation that followed. If you found this story compelling and want to know more about real-life cases of hidden lives and shocking truths, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow our channel. Before Lena met Ben, she lived a life marked by stability and ambition. Born and raised in a close-knit family, Lena always valued honesty and openness. She was the kind of person who looked for the best in others, often trusting people with her heart before they even had to prove themselves. With a steady job in marketing, Lena was confident and had built a circle of friends who adored her for her kindness and loyalty. Her life on the surface was unremarkable, but to Lena, it was everything she had dreamed of. Lena was a dreamer at heart. She had always imagined meeting someone special, someone who would understand her, support her, and share her hopes for the future. Her family was close, and they taught her to believe in love that was built on trust. When she spoke of her hopes, Lena's words were full of excitement. She envisioned the life she would have with the man she would marry, someone who would stand beside her through all of life's challenges. She thought she knew exactly what kind of man she wanted, someone kind, steady, and true. When Lena met Ben, it felt like everything she had ever imagined about love was finally coming true. He swept into her life with an energy that seemed magnetic. His charm was undeniable. He had a way of making her feel like the most important person in the room. Ben listened when she talked, smiled when she smiled, and seemed to align with everything Lena valued in a partner. It wasn't long before the two became inseparable. Ben was the kind of man who made a lasting impression. He was everything Lena had ever hoped for: attractive, confident, and always the life of the party. On the outside, he was the perfect gentleman, polite, charming, and someone who seemed to have it all together. He worked as a financial consultant, and his job allowed him to live a comfortable life, which added to his allure. Ben's charm went beyond his looks. It was the way he made people feel special, as though they were the center of his attention. To Lena, Ben seemed like a man with everything in place. His career was thriving, he was popular in their social circles, and he presented himself as someone with a bright future ahead. He was easy to talk to, approachable, and had an air of sophistication that made him seem like the kind of man who had it all figured out. In every conversation, he spoke of his goals and dreams with passion, convincing Lena that they were on the same page about everything, from career aspirations to family life. Yet, beneath the polished image Ben projected, there were subtle clues that something wasn't quite as it seemed. Small inconsistencies would arise in the stories he told, little details that didn't add up. He would sometimes mention work trips that Lena couldn't verify, or talk about past experiences that seemed to shift with every retelling. At the time, Lena brushed these moments off as harmless, convinced that everyone has their quirks and imperfections. Despite these minor red flags, Lena's heart was fully invested. She believed Ben was the one, her perfect match. He made her feel cherished in a way she had never experienced before. In her mind, there was no reason to question his honesty or the future they were building together. Their relationship progressed quickly. What started as casual dates soon turned into serious talks about the future. Ben would often talk about the life they could have, about how perfect they would be together. Lena was swept away by his words, and it didn't take long before he proposed. It was a beautiful moment. Lena had imagined this day for years, and when it came, it was everything she'd hoped for. Ben's proposal was full of romance, just like she had always dreamed. With a ring on her finger and a smile on her face, Lena felt like the luckiest woman alive. Her friends and family congratulated her, thrilled to see her so happy. Everyone agreed that Ben was everything Lena had ever wanted. Their engagement was celebrated in grand style. Friends shared stories of how happy they were to see Lena so in love, and everyone praised Ben for being such a great catch. For Lena, the future couldn't have looked brighter. She believed they had everything they needed to build a perfect life together. Love, trust, and the kind of happiness she had always dreamed of. But what Lena didn't know was that the man she was about to marry wasn't exactly who he had led her to believe he was. Behind closed doors, the person she thought she knew was someone else entirely. A man hiding a part of his life that would soon come crashing down, revealing the cracks in the image he had so carefully constructed. The background on Lena and Ben's relationship, where we explore the initial stages of their love story. The excitement, the trust, and the early moments of happiness that would later be shattered by the revelation of hidden truths. As their relationship continued to blossom, small cracks began to appear in Ben's seemingly perfect image. These cracks, though minor at first, would go unnoticed by many, but for Lena, they slowly started to raise questions. It began with little things, small inconsistencies in stories that Ben told. Sometimes he would mention a trip or an event, only for the details to change when he spoke about them again. Lena, wanting to believe in the man she loved, brushed off these odd moments as simple mistakes. After all, no one was perfect. But as time passed, these inconsistencies began to add up. Ben's work schedule seemed to shift unpredictably. One moment, he would be home, telling Lena about his long hours at the office. The next, he would suddenly disappear for a day or two without warning, leaving Lena to wonder where he had gone. When she asked, Ben's answers were always vague. He was too busy with work, or something urgent had come up. There were moments when Ben would leave his phone unattended, and Lena couldn't help but notice how quickly he would rush to pick it up if she ever came near it. It was a small action, but it made her feel uneasy. Sometimes, when Ben was on the phone, Lena would overhear pieces of conversations that didn't make sense. He would talk in a low voice, and the minute she walked into the room, the call would end. The secrecy was subtle, but enough to make her wonder what he was hiding. At times, Ben's mood would shift unexpectedly. One day, he would be the warm, loving man she had fallen in love with, and the next, he would be distant, cold, almost as if he was a stranger. Lena tried not to let it bother her, telling herself that everyone had bad days. But the longer it went on, the harder it became to ignore. Lena's feelings of doubt began to grow. She had always prided herself on being a trusting person. But now she found herself questioning everything. The man she had planned to marry, the man she thought she knew inside and out, was starting to feel like a mystery. Her first step was to confront Ben. She asked him about the strange absences, the secretive phone calls, and the sudden changes in his mood. Ben, ever the smooth talker, quickly reassured her. He told her he had been under a lot of pressure at work, and that his mood swings were just a result of stress. He promised that there was nothing to worry about, that he loved her and was committed to their future. But his answers felt hollow. They lacked the sincerity she once knew. Ben's reassurance did little to ease her growing unease. In fact, it only made her more suspicious. Why did he become defensive whenever she asked about his whereabouts? Why was he always so secretive about his work and social life? Lena couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, so she decided to take matters into her own hands. One afternoon, when Ben had stepped out, Lena found herself in a place she had never thought she would go. His things. She rummaged through his desk drawer, sifting through papers and belongings in search of something that could explain his behavior. But there was nothing. Nothing concrete, anyway. She tried to talk to a few of his friends, asking if they had noticed anything strange about him lately, but they all seemed to offer excuses, attributing his behavior to work stress or long hours. Lena began to feel like she was overreacting, but deep down, she couldn't shake the sense that she was missing something. In the quiet moments when she was alone, Lena would replay the odd things Ben had said or done. Her mind began to race, and she couldn't stop herself from imagining the worst. Was there something more going on? Was Ben hiding something from her? Despite her suspicions, Lena didn't know what to do next. Confronting him again seemed like the last option. But each time she did, Ben seemed to deflect, his calm exterior masking the truth she was desperately trying to uncover. The more she tried to dig, the deeper the hole seemed to get. Lena's instincts were telling her that something wasn't right, but she couldn't prove it. And in that uncertainty, her world was beginning to feel less certain than it ever had before. Lena's suspicions had been growing for weeks. The small inconsistencies in Ben's behavior had turned into something more serious, and the secrets he had kept hidden began to take shape in her mind. She couldn't ignore the feeling that something much bigger was at play. Then, one day, it happened. It was a quiet afternoon when Lena found the piece of the puzzle that would shatter everything she thought she knew about Ben. While searching through his office, trying to make sense of the things he had hidden, she stumbled upon an old folder. At first, it seemed like just another stack of paperwork, but when she opened it, she realized it was something entirely different. The folder contained a collection of photos, messages, and even records that hinted at Ben's past. A past he had kept hidden from her. The documents included references to a life Ben had lived before they met, a life that wasn't at all what he had let on. He had worked as an escort. It was a world Lena had never imagined him to be a part of. The photos were from different cities. The messages were flirtatious and suggestive, and the records showed transactions from clients who had paid for his services. Lena's heart sank. It was as if the world around her suddenly stopped. The man she had trusted, the man she was going to marry, had been leading a life she never even suspected. She sat there, in the silence of his office, staring at the evidence before her. It felt like time had frozen, and all the trust she had placed in Ben seemed to crumble before her eyes. How could she have not known? How could she have been so blind to the life he had been hiding? The discovery hit Lena harder than she had imagined. She felt betrayed, not just by Ben, but by herself for not seeing the signs sooner. Her mind raced with questions. Had he been living this double life the entire time they were together? Was their entire relationship built on lies? The first thing Lena felt was shock. The man she had dreamed of spending her life with was not the person she had thought him to be. His charm, his success, his ability to make her feel special, it all seemed so fake now. Lena questioned everything, from their first date to the moments they had shared. She wondered if any of it had been real. But soon, that shock turned into anger. How dare he keep this from her? How could he lie about something so huge? Lena had trusted Ben with her heart, and now she felt like he had betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was deeply personal. Lena began to feel unsafe. If Ben could hide such a huge part of his life from her, what else could he be hiding? What did this mean for their future? In the days following her discovery, Lena found herself at a crossroads. She couldn't just ignore what she had learned, but she wasn't sure what to do with the information either. Should she confront Ben? Should she end the relationship? Every decision felt like a weight on her shoulders. Lena eventually did confront Ben. She sat him down and asked him to explain. Ben's reaction was one of surprise, but not the kind she expected. He didn't seem remorseful or apologetic at first. Instead, he tried to downplay it, claiming that it was a part of his past that didn't matter anymore. He told her that he had changed, that he loved her, and that his past was behind him. But Lena couldn't let it go. The lies, the deceit, it had shattered the foundation of their relationship. She tried to understand why Ben had never told her, why he had hidden this part of himself for so long. His answers felt empty, as though he was more concerned about saving his own reputation than acknowledging the hurt he had caused. In the weeks that followed, Lena felt a growing sense of emotional exhaustion. She didn't know who to trust, not even herself. How could she move forward with a man who had kept such a monumental secret from her? her feelings of betrayal mixed with fear. What did this revelation mean for her safety? For her peace of mind? Lena felt as though she had lost control of her own life. The future she had imagined with Ben seemed impossible now. The emotional toll of the discovery was heavy. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't think straight. The weight of the truth was suffocating, and she found herself questioning her own judgment. Psychologists have long studied the effects of betrayal, and Lena's reaction is not uncommon. When someone experiences deep betrayal, especially by a partner, it can trigger a sense of confusion, anger, and sometimes even self-doubt. The person who has been betrayed might feel as if their entire reality has been distorted, leading to a kind of emotional disorientation. For Lena, the discovery of Ben's past had a profound psychological impact. She was no longer sure of the person she had thought she knew. The emotional toll of this kind of betrayal can often lead to feelings of isolation. Lena began to pull away from her friends, unsure of how to explain what had happened. The shock of the discovery made her feel distant from everyone. Moreover, feelings of fear and anxiety are often a natural response to such betrayal. Lena's concern was not only about the lies Ben had told her, but also about what else might be hidden. Was this the only secret he had kept from her? Was there more she would uncover if she dug deeper? The emotional fallout was something Lena would carry with her for a long time. It wasn't just about the lies. It was about the way they made her feel about herself. The sense of safety she had once felt in her relationship was gone. The days following Lena's discovery of Ben's past were filled with tension and emotional upheaval. She had tried to carry on with their relationship, but everything felt strained. The trust between them had been shattered, and the future she had once imagined seemed uncertain. Lena wanted to move forward, but she could no longer ignore the truth about Ben's past. The man she had loved was no longer the same in her eyes. They had tried to talk things out, but their conversations were often filled with anger, frustration, and confusion. Ben's reassurances seemed empty to her now. He had promised that he had changed, but Lena wasn't so sure. Despite the emotional distance that had grown between them, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that Ben's secret past had a hold on him. The more she learned about his former life, the more she wondered how far he would go to keep his secret hidden. Then, the confrontation happened. Lena, frustrated by Ben's refusal to be open about his past, confronted him one final time. She told him she couldn't continue living in a relationship built on lies. She needed to know the truth, and she demanded that he come clean about everything. This time, she wasn't going to accept his half-hearted explanations. Ben's response was not one Lena expected. Instead of apologizing, instead of showing the remorse she had hoped for, he became defensive. He insisted that his past was behind him and that Lena was overreacting. But this time, Lena was resolute. She told him she needed space, and she wasn't sure if she could continue the relationship. This was the breaking point. Ben's anger, once controlled, started to surface. The calm exterior he had maintained for so long was now cracking. He wasn't just afraid of losing Lena, he was afraid of losing the life he had worked so hard to build, the life that had been built on secrets and lies. Ben's reaction to Lena's decision was not just one of frustration. It was the response of a man who feared everything he had worked for would fall apart. The thought of being exposed, of losing the facade he had so carefully constructed, drove him to a breaking point. Ben had always maintained control over his life, controlling the narrative he told others. But Lena's discovery of his past had stripped away that control. She had the power to destroy everything he had worked to build. And in Ben's mind, the only way to prevent that from happening was to ensure she would never speak of it again. It wasn't just about maintaining his secret. It was about preserving the life he had created. The shame of his past weighed heavily on him, and the thought of Lena revealing it to others filled him with fear. He believed that if Lena left him, he would lose everything. His reputation, his carefully cultivated image, and the life he had built would crumble. In the moments leading up to the tragic event, Ben's desire to keep his secret hidden became the driving force behind his actions. Fear and shame overtook him, and in a moment of desperation, he made the decision to act. The events leading up to the crime unfolded with a sense of finality. The tension between Ben and Lena had been growing for days, and the confrontation was the breaking point. What happened next was a tragic decision that would end Lena's life and alter Ben's future forever. Ben had never been a violent person. He had always been able to charm his way through situations and control his emotions. But that night, something inside him snapped. The confrontation with Lena, the emotional toll of the betrayal, and the fear of losing everything overwhelmed him. The exact details of what happened that evening remain unclear, but forensic evidence would later reveal the truth. Lena had been found in their home in a state of shock, her life taken far too soon. The cause of death was consistent with blunt force trauma, and authorities were able to piece together a timeline of events that pointed to Ben's involvement. The investigation revealed that Lena had been struck in a fit of rage. The force of the blow was enough to cause fatal injury, and the violence of the act reflected the emotional chaos Ben had been experiencing. Authorities were able to gather evidence from the scene that pointed to a confrontation. Witnesses reported hearing loud noises coming from the home that evening, and forensic experts were able to link Ben to the scene. The timeline, combined with physical evidence, confirmed what had been suspected all along. Ben had been responsible for Lena's tragic end. It was a quiet morning when the police received a call about an unusual situation at Ben and Lena's home. Neighbors had reported hearing loud noises late the previous night, followed by silence. When authorities arrived at the scene, they were met with a chilling sight. Lena was found unconscious and unresponsive in her living room. Despite the efforts to resuscitate her, it was quickly determined that she had passed away. At first, there was little evidence to suggest foul play. The couple had never been known to have issues in public, and everything seemed ordinary at the surface. However, the officers noticed something that would set the investigation in motion. Ben was unusually calm. He didn't seem shaken, nor did he express the type of distress one might expect after the loss of a partner. Ben's behavior raised some initial red flags. When questioned about the events leading to Lena's death, his answers seemed rehearsed, and he avoided giving clear details. He explained that Lena had fallen and injured herself, but something about his story didn't sit right with the detectives. Despite the lack of clear evidence, the police began to dig deeper. They started to look into Ben's background, examining his past and his relationship with Lena. It was at this point that the first clues about Ben's double life began to surface. Ben initially tried to portray himself as a grieving fiancé, trying to distance himself from any suspicion. He cooperated with the police, but his attempts to steer the investigation in the direction of an accident seemed calculated. He was careful to paint Lena as someone who had been struggling with personal issues, hinting that she may have been unstable. His strategy was to deflect attention from himself and his past, hoping that any suspicion would be directed toward other possibilities. He told the authorities that Lena had recently been upset about their relationship and her future, downplaying the gravity of her discovery about his past life. His story seemed plausible at first, but the police knew they had to look deeper. One of the first breakthroughs in the investigation came when detectives looked at the timeline of events leading up to Lena's death. There were inconsistencies in Ben's statements, and the lack of visible injuries on Lena suggested the possibility of something far more violent. Forensic experts were brought in to examine the scene, and they began to piece together the timeline. It didn't take long for investigators to uncover more about Ben's past. The breakthrough came when detectives gained access to Ben's phone records and social media accounts. They found evidence of his secret life, a life he had desperately tried to keep hidden from Lena and everyone else. The more they dug, the more they discovered about Ben's history, including connections to people he had known during his time as an escort. They found messages, photos, and even receipts that pointed directly to the double life he had led. Ben had been hiding his past from Lena for months, and it became clear that his fear of exposure had played a large role in the tragedy. Authorities also uncovered evidence that contradicted Ben's version of the events. Witnesses reported hearing loud arguing the night before Lena's death, and forensic evidence indicated that the injuries Lena had sustained were not consistent with a simple fall. Detectives were finally able to connect the dots, and it became clear that Ben had not only lied about the circumstances of Lena's death, but had been leading a double life that played a significant role in the tragic events. The news of Lena's death hit her family and friends hard. Those who knew her described her as vibrant, full of life, and with a bright future ahead. She had been deeply in love with Ben, and many had seen the couple as the perfect match. Lena's parents, devastated by the loss of their daughter, struggled to come to terms with the fact that her life had ended so suddenly and violently. They had never suspected that their daughter was in any kind of danger. Lena's mother spoke about the shock of learning that Lena had been hiding the truth about her relationship. Her closest friends were also reeling from the revelation. They described her as someone who had always been there for them, someone who was strong and independent. To learn that her fiancé had been hiding such a dark secret left them heartbroken. Many expressed disbelief that Ben, a man they had all welcomed into their circle, could have been hiding such a dangerous side to his personality. One of Lena's childhood friends recalled how Lena had always spoken highly of Ben, never once hinting at any issues in their relationship. She thought she had found her soulmate, the friend said. To find out everything was a lie. It's something I still can't understand. As the investigation continued, the emotional toll on everyone connected to Lena deepened. They couldn't understand why Ben had done this, why he had kept such a monumental part of his life hidden. The pain of losing Lena was compounded by the knowledge that her death had been preventable. After several weeks of testimony and emotional moments in the courtroom, the jury began deliberating. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as everyone waited for the decision. The evidence had been overwhelming, and it seemed clear that Ben's double life had played a significant role in the tragic events. When the jury finally returned with their verdict, it was a moment that no one in the courtroom would forget. Ben was found guilty of the murder of Lena. The courtroom was filled with mixed emotions: relief, sadness, and disbelief. For Lena's family, the verdict was a bittersweet moment of justice. They had always believed in Lena's worth and had worked tirelessly to ensure that her death was not in vain. Once the verdict was announced, the focus shifted to the sentencing phase. Lena's family had been waiting for this moment, hoping for a sentence that would reflect the severity of Ben's actions. The prosecution argued for the maximum sentence, citing the premeditated nature of the crime and the betrayal of trust that had occurred. Ben's defense team, however, asked for leniency, claiming that his actions were the result of the intense pressure he had been under due to his hidden past. They pointed to his emotional state and the fear he had of losing everything when Lena discovered his secret. However, the court rejected these arguments. In the end, Ben was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, ensuring that he would face the consequences of his actions for many years to come. While it could never bring Lena back, her family felt that the sentence was a step toward justice and a small measure of closure. The case left a lasting impact on those who followed it, sparking discussions about the dangers of hidden lives, secrets, and betrayal. Many people were shocked by how well Ben had hidden his true identity, which led to a tragic loss of trust and, ultimately, Lena's life. The case served as a reminder of the importance of openness and honesty in relationships. Psychologists and experts in human behavior discussed how fear and shame can drive people to hide aspects of their lives. They explained that the need to maintain a facade can be so overwhelming that it leads individuals to make drastic, life-altering decisions, as seen with Ben's actions. For many, the case underscored the complexities of human behavior and the profound consequences that secrets can have on not just the individuals involved, but everyone around them. For Lena's family and friends, the impact of her death would never fully fade. Her parents, though relieved by the verdict, would never be able to bring their daughter back. The trauma of losing Lena in such a senseless manner would remain with them for the rest of their lives. Lena's friends, too, carried the weight of the loss. They had witnessed her love for Ben and had seen her hope for the future. To know that her life was taken away so suddenly and violently was something they struggled to come to terms with. Lena's legacy, however, lived on in the hearts of those who loved her. Her family and friends held on to the memories of her kindness, her spirit, and the life she had dreamed of. In the wake of her death, they vowed to share her story, not just as a cautionary tale, but as a testament to the love and strength that she had shown throughout her life.